I'm going to suggest 3 ways for you to participate in the 2022 Queering Wikipedia Conference. This is the first global LGBT conference in the Wikipedia community, and it's going to be entirely online. There is a place for you to present or participate as you like. The first way that you can participate is just show up. Just be an attendee. You don't have to say anything. This is a conference. People are going to be giving talks, and you can attend these talks. You can just watch them. If you're feeling fanciful or have questions, engage with the speakers, ask them questions. There's always Q&A. So just show up to the conference, watch the website for details about what's going to happen and when, what the program is. Second way that you can participate is that you can actually make a submission to the conference. You can be a presenter. This is a call for submissions. If you are a Wiki community member, you're familiar with editing, there's 2 things that I'd like to suggest with you. You can submit whatever you want, but these are suggestions. If you edit anything with other people, even if they're just your online friends, you've never met them in person, just your collaborators, but if there's anything you're doing with a group, submit that and say, there's a group of us, we edit this kind of content, and here's how it works. The reason why this submission would be useful, even though it's very ordinary to Wikipedia editors, it's useful to document what happens and why. Please tell your story. You can tell it in a few minutes. You can do a longer presentation, but we'd like to capture, archive, and tell the world how it is that people organize Wikipedia editing and why they do it. If you know more about wiki editing and you actually participate in the governance or community organization, then you must have encountered social issues in the LGBT space. Social issues like harassment of Wikipedia editors, information gaps where we've got good information, say about the Western world, but we're lacking information about lower and middle income countries. Maybe you've seen other kinds of gaps or information or things where we're having problems deciding how to describe certain LGBT issues, what to do about pronouns, any of the other social issues. Describe these in your own words, make a submission. Let's get these issues documented. The sooner we get them documented, the sooner we can convene conversation on the best way to address the challenges we're facing. If you're not a Wikipedia editor, but you're in the LGBT space and you've got something to share, you also are welcome at this conference. The usual way that someone from outside the Wiki community participates in a Wikipedia conference is that they say what their expertise or knowledge is. They say, I've got some information to share. And they look at Wikipedia and they say, well, Wikipedia is very popular. If I take this knowledge I have and put it into Wikipedia, then it's going to reach a large audience. So you can do this if you're affiliated with, say, an LGBT nonprofit or NGO, or even if you don't have an institutional affiliation and you're just an LGBT person who knows about an underrepresented group or an underrepresented geographic location, then present and say, here's the kind of LGBT history that we have, and we're looking for a way to better document this in Wikipedia. Can somebody examine our sources, and here's our idea for how to get that into Wikipedia. That also would be a legitimate presentation. If you have questions about any of these things, then post to the conference talk page. Get support now so that you can make a good submission for the conference, which is coming up in months towards the end of the year. The third way that I'm going to invite you to participate is you can apply to be a volunteer to organize some part of the conference. Wikipedia is the encyclopedia that anyone can edit. Queering Wikipedia is the LGBT conference in which anybody can support in any way that makes sense. Some volunteer community roles, which we have, and I'm going to suggest these, but you might come up with your own role, and you can volunteer as you like. Of course, we have a program committee. There needs to be a group of volunteers who read every submission that comes in, decide how to schedule them, get as many people scheduled as possible in whatever way is appropriate. Some live presentations, some pre-recorded presentations, get all this into the conference program and talk with the people who are submitting these presentations. There is a communication committee to make sure that we've invited everyone to the conference, both Wiki community members and external organizations. Somebody who doesn't want to necessarily collaborate with the entire communication committee, but they say, I know how to reach this group, I know how to reach these people. You can just volunteer and say, I'm going to do outreach to this particular organization, and I'm going to invite them to the conference or invite them to make a presentation. That is a useful volunteer contribution. There is an overall governance committee. somebody to say, let's look at the budget we have for this conference. Let's look at the different committees. Let's make sure that the conference is fair. Let's resolve any kind of disputes that might be happening between organizers or between people who are submitting to the conference or people on the outside in any way. There is a safety committee. We know that because this is an LGBT space, we've been editing Wiki for so long that threats come from external to the Wiki, from random people on the internet. There can also be some kind of safety issues within the Wiki community. Like, for example, somebody's a Wiki editor, they're in a country where editing about LGBT topics is dangerous, and someone needs to make some kind of safety concession for them to be able to participate appropriately in the conference. That's what the safety committee does. Last thing, if you don't really want to join any committees, there's talk pages associated with these committees, with the conference overall, and you can just watch the talk forums. You don't need to register for anything, but if anybody comments on something or they have a question, feel free to jump in. It's just like any other kinds of social media. Somebody posts a comment on the internet and you're welcome to respond to it. So that's it. 3 options for participating in this conference. We'd really like for you to join. You can join as the audience, you can join as the presenter, or you can join as one of the volunteers on the committees organizing the conference. Thanks. Please check it out. Querying Wikipedia 2022, coming later in the year.